moving forward, when we are talking about living together, if we are just remaining like that, there is always a chaotic situation. So in order to control the chaos, there should be a hierarchy of different rules and systems. So in animal systems also, there is a particular hierarchy where one particular individual stays on top and usually gets the major share of the resources, decides the entire group movement, and controls the basic necessities of the group by moving forward and around. Okay, and that is usually called the dominant individual, or usually referred as the alpha. So it could be male, it could be female. If the male is alpha, or it is usually the deciding factor of the group, then the hierarchy is patriarchal. And if it is a female, then that is matriarchal. Okay, and if there is no particular gender or race based designation, then that is egalitarianism or equalitarianism. So when the individual is dominant, there is always someone subordinate to that. So dominants are called alpha, and the subdominants or the subordinates are usually betas, gammas, and so on. So in a case of, let's say, a dog society or a dog family, there is an alpha. Okay, and below that there are multiple betas which function together and control a specific group of females, right? So that is also seen in many cases of macaques. Okay, you can find that here is a patriarchal society where a particular alpha is the male. It usually does the part of a job of a sentinel and usually gets major resources. You can see an alpha male of a monkey is usually more healthier, okay, larger in size, and there are betas which are lesser in size and subordinates. They control a specific group of females, and under them there are kids or juveniles. Okay, so this is usually led by a dominant male followed by subordinate males. Hence, it's a patriarchal systems. In matriarchal system, you will find dominant female followed by subordinate females, and this is usually found in elephants, hyenas, and few other organisms. Egalitarianism is usually where no groups or no particular race or gender is given dominant positions. There is equal sharing of positions, which is actually a society of humans, but we don't actually have. But the evolutionary properties of humans had egalitarianism, so we did not have any sort of discrimination between who would take charge of the entire society, but there was a gender role participation of both. There were females, there were male, both of them participated, and equally, like hunting and gathering societies that we had in previous times, hunters were specifically dealt with a particular task, so they led the hunter party, and there were gathering parts or the gathering teams, and a female led the gathering party. So both of them had certain roles and gender roles, and then they used to maintain and regulate the entire society. So there was no clash of particular who will take the entire charge, but there was a related distribution of tasks as well as societal hierarchy. Okay, which should be there in humans right now as well. We are moving towards and we are demanding that. So it is how it should be equal. So when we talk about our social systems, it is always restricted by a particular boundary, which is usually called as territory. So territory is a sociographical area that is maintained and defended by different organisms. Okay, territory is usually a fact or an area that is defended, whereas a home range is an individual's habitable space. It can roam around on the home range, but usually it doesn't defend particular home range. Territorial situation is you are defending the territory. Home range, you can move around any spaces. So home range is usually dynamic. There is no certain rule or pertain area restriction of home range. You can just habitably move around in any spaces. But territorial spaces are usually restricted depending on the resources and many other factors. Okay, because you have to defend with respect to that what you have and what you don't. So territory could be multiple types. It could be all-purpose territory where we are dealing with mating, breeding, and other participant of foraging, and all of the factors are happening inside the group of that particular territory. So all-purpose territory refers to the fact that a territory conquers all the particular requirements of that particular group. So a breeding territory refers to the fact that an organism might live in different regions but form together to defend a particular breeding territory or breeding society. Okay, then there is nesting territory is usually maintained by females. A breeding territory is usually maintained by males. It makes a group and form together, whereas nesting territories are usually maintained by females. They maintain the territory of a particular nest, and it is usually smaller than that of the breeding territory. Breeding territory also includes the other facts, that is courtship, the fact of mating, the legs and everything, but in nest we are just mentioning about the nest and the residing areas. Then there is wintering territory. Wintering territory are maintained by the organisms which go for wintering grounds, because in wintering grounds it's a temporary situation, and even in that situation they need a specific space, so they'll maintain a territory in the wintering grounds. Then roosting spaces are usually those territory which are meant for resting at night, and they have different territories for that. Usually many organisms live at different trees. Let's say if we are talking about a bird, then it lives in a particular tree, but it will defend the tree for roosting, right? So when we are dealing about multiple groups, we are dealing with different cost and benefits. So there is some cost inferred to it and some benefits. The cost that are associated with the group living is ectoparasitism and diseases. Because if one particular individual gets a particular disease and if it is communicable, then all of the individuals are prone to get the diseases. So usually it is prominently seen that a participant of social society or social group usually is prone to multiple diseases if one particular individual gets the disease. So it refers to ectoparasitic diseases as well, or endoparasitic diseases, or any kind of other disease. Then it is prone to intraspecific competition. As I mentioned, there are multiple sorts of conflicts that happens within a particular group, and there is shared cost of reproduction because there is only restricted sex ratio which might be lower or upper. In that situation, it is prone that all of individuals will try to and get together to reproduce that particular available females, and all the individuals that are born out of that female will also try and struggle within that group. So that is one particular situation that happens in reproduction and development of the individuals. As because there are multiple cases of competition and territory defense and then maintenance of that resources, maintenance of that society, many organisms are prone to stress. It might be physiological, it might be emotional, it might be associated stress. And then there is inbreeding. So if the organisms or the group is restricted in a particular zone and they cannot move out, then there are chances that they have to inbreed, or there are chances of exchange of similar genes which will cause inbreeding. All the benefits that are associated with the group living is social interaction. More and more social interaction are necessary for organisms to communicate, to learn things, and which will help the variation to pass on. If there are less and less social interaction, there are more chances of learning less and less, or there are less chances of upbringing of multiple variations. Then there is protection from predators. We also understand that in case of dilution effect, if there are multiple individuals, then the predator has less chances of identifying a particular or focusing at a particular prey, and hence will not be able to eat up the prey. And also it can defend them, like multiple preys coming together can defend that from themselves from the predator. Then there is enhanced foraging, that sharing of information. A particular group is sharing or getting a particular information that this is a good patch, then they can inform the other individuals to invite them, and so that each of them can eat together. So this usually happens in particular groups. Apart from that, they also alarm the other individuals in case of predators. Okay, then there is increased locomotion efficiency in case of migration. In case of aerodynamic situation, we can see that multiple individuals flying alone has a less chance of traveling for a longer distance, but when they are flying in a group, they are aerodynamically more adapted and better suited to travel. Okay, so there is increased locomotion efficiency. That's same for fishes as well. And then there is improved adaptations, because adaptations are more improved in that is available and sustained in a particular group. Then we are talking about group dynamics, group movement, and different aspects of group. It is important to understand that there are different particular modes or particular aspects. So dispersal is an aspect where we are talking about travel of individuals from their breeding or the natal ground to outside, and it is usually permanent movement, whereas migration is a sort of a cyclic movement that happens two-way. So individuals go and come back. So dispersal can include emigration and immigration as well. Aggregation, we are talking about no definitive particular formation of group, they are just forming all together. Okay, so that's sort of aggregation. Then there is metapopulation dynamics, as we have talked about in population studies, that multiple organisms which work in patches. There is interaction that happens within them. Few individuals move from one area to other and come back. So that sort of interaction in metapublic situation happens a lot. Then there is coordination and cooperation. As we have studied, and we were studying right now previously, that coordination and cooperation is important in case of groups. Okay, and all of this restricted and regulated by habitat and resource dynamics. So the group dynamics function around all these aspects: dispersal of organisms, migration that happens, aggregation of multiple individuals within or definitive or indefinite systems. Then there is metapopulation, multiple populations that interact with each other, and the interaction should have a coordinated manner and they should cooperate with each other with respect to all the habitats, resource management, and resource dynamics. So they will all together form the idea of group dynamics. So when we are studying group dynamics, we have to study all these aspects as well.